and our common efforts to get the blocked grain out of Odessa. The Kremlin is weaponizing food supplies and surrounding their actions with a web of lies, Soviet style. We must join forces to call out these fabrications as pure fiction, particularly for the global south. These are Russian ships and Russian missiles that are blocking the export of crops and grain. Russian tanks, bombs, and mines are preventing Ukraine from planting and harvesting. Let's be clear, these are no EU sanctions on Russian agricultural products. And I say to all countries affected by this food crisis, don't be fooled by the Kremlin's propaganda. Don't be instrumentalized by Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, we also reached a landmark agreement on Russian oil. This embargo will cover 90% of all imports from Russia into the EU by the end of the year. This is a remarkable achievement, and it will be extended to all pipeline oil as soon as possible. 2 months ago, in this House, I said that measures on hydrocarbons will be needed sooner or later, and we did it. This shows that we are and we remain united and committed to piling the pressure on Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine urgently needs liquidity, 5 billion euros a month just to keep the country running. So we discussed how we can work with our international partners to get the Ukrainian government the money it needs. We agreed to provide up to 9 billion euros to Ukraine in macrofinancial assistance. And we also addressed Ukraine's reconstruction right now and in the future. The EU must be and will be a leader in driving this forward. We discussed a Ukraine reconstruction platform together with the Ukrainian government, the EU and member states, and all our international partners and friends. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia is brutally destroying Ukraine, and it's only fair that Russia, the aggressor, should pay to rebuild the country. So we agreed to look into the possibility of confiscating assets of sanctioned Russian individuals and entities in line with EU and international law. This could help finance Ukraine's reconstruction. Russia's war has bolstered ambition for a strong, coordinated European defense. In March, in Versailles, we agreed to strengthen our security and to increase our sovereignty. We want to have defense capabilities that match today's threats, and we agreed to urgently replenish member states' stocks of equipment sent to Ukraine, and in the medium and long term, to reinforce our European defense technology and industrial sector, including SMEs. This means better coordinating our purchases and pooling spending for joint procurement. Member states' lack of cooperation on defense is costing tens of billions of euros per year. Only 11% of member states' defense investments are spent collaboratively, and we are missing huge opportunities for real savings, for economies of scale, and for ensuring that our armed forces are more interoperable. A more capable EU will strengthen NATO and increase global security. We also discussed energy prices, including the possibility of trying to lower the gas price by capping it together with our international partners. Different views remain on the feasibility, and we have therefore tasked the Commission to analyze this, and we are also working to phase out Russian fossil fuel imports. And to become more energy independent, we will act in 4 key areas. First, we will diversify the fuels we use and the sources they come from. Second, we will speed up the deployment of renewables and the permitting procedures. Third, we will do more to save energy and promote energy efficiency. And finally, we will invest in infrastructure, interconnections, and renewables. But our discussions show that much work remains on the financing aspects of the Commission's proposals. and the Council will now take words forward in these different areas. Listen, gentlemen, dear colleagues, if we want to be a geopolitical power, we must act as a geopolitical power. This means taking care of ourselves, but also taking care of others. By banding together, we can use that power to become more sovereign and more prosperous, more influential. We are united and committed to back Ukraine and to build our common future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, President Michel. And now I give the floor to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
Madam President, dear Roberta, Mr. President, cher Charles, ladies and gentlemen, honourable members. In the early weeks of this war, you remember that the leaders were gathering in Versailles and Europe found a common sense of purpose. The European Commission took responsibility to translating this purpose into action. At the European Council last week, there we presented our very practical approaches and proposals on 4 main topics. The first one is we have to get rid of the dependency on Russian fossil fuels. We have gotten rid already of coal. We are now in a phase where we can wind down the dependency on Russian oil, 90% till the end of the year. I would have hoped for 100%, but this is unanimity, so 90% is good till the end of the year. And now we have to look at gas, and for that we presented the 300 billion package Repower EU. What is in it? 3 main pillars. The first one is diversify away from Russia towards more trustworthy and good suppliers, friends of us, for example, the United States, and to invest in the necessary infrastructure in a way, when I'm speaking, for example, about pipelines and interconnectors, that yes, today it's for gas, but tomorrow it has to be hydrogen ready, so the investment is worth it. The second part is energy saving and energy efficiency. Sounds so easy, is big topic, because I just want to share with you one figure that really impressed me. If in the European Union, over a year, we decrease the average heating temperature by 2 degrees only, this is the equivalent of the whole supply of Nord Stream 1. 2 degrees only. And this shows the power of energy savings and energy efficiency. And the third pillar is the most important, that is massive investment in renewables. And I could speak here for an hour about that topic, but I will not do that because I have to focus now on the 3 other topics. The second one is and was defense at the Council. The Commission did a gaps analysis. There is a clear underinvestment since the economic and financial crisis. You can see it. I give you a few figures that show that. In the last decade, we had an increase in defense spending in the European Union by 19%. The United States, 65%. Russia, 300%. And China, 600%. And I think these figures are telling. So now the good news is that leaders have stepped up, and if you look at the figures they have now put publicly as investment in defense, it's 200 billion. Now it is important not only that we have these 200 billion, but how we spend it. And here joint procurement is paramount, because this is a question of ending the fragmentation, of economy of scale, of interoperability, and of development of our industrial base here in the European Union. So we really have to look at that intensively. The third topic was very important on relief and reconstruction on Ukraine. I explained it extensively last time when we were here in Strasbourg. So today I want to focus on food security, and perhaps in my closing remarks it might be possible to refer to the relief and reconstruction. Food security. Honourable members, the Russian invasion of Ukraine reverberates around the world. This is not just about what its impact is on economics, geopolitics, and security architecture. It is about the lives and livelihoods of millions of people around the world. Millions of people who fear that they will not be able to afford tomorrow how to heat their homes and how to feed their children. And the numbers are stark. This year alone, some 275 million people are likely to be at least at the risk of food insecurity across the world, not to know where to get your food as of tomorrow. And in an inflationary world we are in right now, that risk and those numbers can quickly spiral further out of control. Many families in parts of sub-Saharan Africa already spend close to half of their income on food. They have no room to maneuver anymore with rising food prices. No way. So it is no surprise that the World Bank has estimated that 10 million people are pushed into extreme poverty for every percentage point increase in food prices. 10 million people, 1% increase. So we should be under no illusions about the challenges ahead. We are facing up to a collision of crises which will amplify food insecurity and debt distress around the world. Some of these are a legacy of the pandemic and wider issues linked to the cost of living, for instance, the rising energy prices that have driven up the costs of fertilizers or of transporting exports. Others are more long-term and structural, such as the effects of extreme weather linked to climate change. But, honourable members, whether cyclical or structural, all of these impacts have one thing in common. They are massively and deliberately compounded by Putin's war. And this is a cold, callous, and calculated siege by Putin on some of the most vulnerable countries and people in the world. And therefore, honourable members, food has become now part of the Kremlin's arsenal of terror, and we cannot tolerate this. I think this is the only way to describe Russia's bombarding of grain storage, the blockage of the Ukrainian ports, actually also in some cases even theft of grain from Ukraine. So at the moment being, there are around about 20 million tons of grain currently trapped in Ukraine, and it is our duty to dismantle Russia's disinformation. Let's be very clear, here in this hemicycle and outside. Our sanctions do not touch basic food commodities. They do not affect the trading of grain or other food between Russia and third countries. And the port embargo specifically has full exemption on agricultural goods. So let's stick to the truth. It's Putin's war of aggression that fuels the food crisis and nothing else. Honourable members, while the cause is without doubt, our response must be just as clear. And there are 4 areas of action which I believe we must now focus on together. The first is keeping the markets open so that trade can continue to flow. This means stepping up our work on the solidarity lanes. We are working very hard to provide an alternative way. I know it's not optimal, but it's at least something to make sure that the grain that is blocked in Ukraine gets to the markets as quickly as possible. This helps. But the world needs the Black Sea ports of Ukraine up and running again, because the majority of Ukrainian grain can only be exported in time through the Black Sea routes. And therefore, I'm very grateful to the United Nations for its efforts. In parallel, we need to work with our partners to ensure that there are no export restrictions or controls that will hamper the market. The European Union keeps its food export going, and so should everyone else. Second area, this is solidarity and support to partners. This is about short-term support to the countries mostly at risk. For example, we are now investing an additional 225 million euros to address the short and medium-term needs of the southern neighbourhood partners. And I will be in Egypt next week to discuss with President al-Sisi how best we can target our support to the region. This is a big, big task for all of us. The third area is responding and investing in making our response in investing in making local markets more sustainable and resilient. If you look at the figures, 50 years ago, Africa produced all the food it needed, only 50 years ago. Then climate change made water scarce, and the desert swallowed hundreds of kilometers of fertile land, year after year. Today, Africa is heavily dependent on imports for critical food products, and this makes it vulnerable. And therefore, in the medium and long term, an initiative to boost the region's own production capacity is critical to strengthen the region's resilience. We should have the same mindset like we did with the vaccines. Yes, at the moment being, we have to bring food to Africa. Yes, it is the short-term solution and it is necessary without any question. And we should look at how we use our grain here in Europe and how much we can really bring to Africa. But in the mid and long term, like with the vaccines, it should not be our food brought to Africa, but it should be the technology that is in Africa, and Africa produces itself what it needs. So here we really have to step up. And for this, the EU budget has already earmarked 3 billion euros to invest in agriculture and nutrition, water and sanitation programs, precision farming, nanotechnology for fertilizers. You don't need the energy anymore. So there are many, many interesting technologies out there. But it is clear that we need to do more and we will need to move faster. And this is why the Commission has raised with Member States now the possibility to mobilize 600 million euros of decommitted funds from the European Development Fund. And please, I would be very, very happy if we move swiftly. I know that this Parliament is able to do it. You have proven it in the crisis, so let's prove it another time. Finally, let me emphasize that we are not doing this alone. We are working very closely with Member States through the Team Europe approach. We are working closely with the United Nations and the G7 presidency. That has made this a key theme of the upcoming leaders' meeting. Unity and support are the strongest messages we can send in the face of Russian aggression and Russian disinformation. And, honourable members, it is only natural that many of our partners around the world see this conflict through the prism of food and energy crisis. And they expect the European Union, of course other countries in the world too, but they expect the European Union to show the same resolve, the same solidarity, as we have rightly so shown to Ukraine when it comes to addressing the food crisis in the world. And this is exactly what we will have to do through our own response, through our work with the G7 and with other partners. Long live Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commission President. I'll now invite, on behalf of the EPP Group, Manfred Weber to take the floor.
President Metsola, von der Leyen, Michel, dear colleagues. Yeah, let's assess the last Council meeting. First of all, about sanctions, defense, all the other initiatives. I think the outcome is good. We made a step forward. Europe is on a good way. But I ask myself, frankly speaking, when we reflect about the last Council meeting, why nobody mentioned until now the name of Viktor Orban? Because when people see and saw what happened in the last European Council, I think they understood that there is Viktor Orban, one of the crazy guys on the table. And this is a problem for us as Europeans. I ask myself, how was it to sit next to him, to have the experience to be blackmailed by Viktor Orban, to have Putin's interests sitting on the table? I have a long history, personally, with Viktor Orban. We kicked him out 2 years ago. Today, my party, the EPP, is in Poland, in Czech Republic, for example, we kicked out the corrupt Babiš out of office. So we are the rule of law party today in a lot of Central and Eastern European countries. I am proud about this. But again, how was it? And I ask these questions, because I think a lot of people, all of Europe, understand that the current architecture, the current decision-making process is not anymore giving us answer to the tasks of the table. That's why the question again, why are not we initiating the passerelle clause in the Lisbon Treaty? Why do we don't discuss these issues? And the European Parliament will vote tomorrow on the idea to ask for a convention. I thank all colleagues from the other groups that we find a good text now, that we find a common understanding about our requests on the table, a joint text. I hope that the leaders have enough will, show enough leadership to really develop the idea of a convention. When we speak about leadership, then also Ukraine is in our mind. The next European Council will have to discuss about the candidate status. I want to remind ourselves that a few days after the war started, on 24th of February, President Zelensky was here on the screen, and he was asking us, are we welcomed? Can we become a member of the club? Is it worth to fight? That was his question. And I said here, like a lot of my colleagues, yes, you are welcome. Yes, you can join the European Union. And that's why it's so important that we give in the next European Council a clear mandate, a clear signal to the Ukraine friends that their fight is a good fight and they are welcomed in the European family. So that's why we need a decision of a candidate status now. That is what we need. And also for Moldova, I want to be clear on this, that the Republic of Moldova has to have the same treatment. I want to underline that this is part of a broader development, for sure. When we speak about Western Balkan, the whole enlargement process is not anymore about the single market. It is today about stability. And that's why we should do it now. We should show leadership again in this aspect. And my group is hardly fighting for this. And then I want to welcome the initiatives from the Commission on the food security. Madam President, a lot of these issues are good issues, and to prioritize this is great. Probably, generally speaking, we can say farmers are not anymore seen as the bad guys polluting our environment, because that was the perception over the last years. Farmers are those who are working hard, families who are working hard to deliver high-quality food for all of us, and that should be respected, that should be seen, especially in the week where we celebrate 60 years of the CAP. And when we speak about the economic situation, dear colleagues, for farmers, then I want to ask President of the Council to consider to put another item on the agenda of the next European Council, because for the moment we speak a lot about the external dimension, but we don't speak so much about the concerns of our citizens, and that is about inflation, that is about the interest rates going up in the next few months, what we hear from the ECB. The growth rate is not promising for today's European expectations. We are in front of a recession, of a possible recession. People are confronted with the question, can I pay my bill for holidays now or for a better education for my children? That is the question of the citizens in the European Union. And that's why politically, populists are already waiting for this development. We have to give an answer. We have to prioritize this debate now. We have to prioritize it now. And the EPP always insisting in jobs, jobs, jobs. That is our method. And I ask you now to put this on the agenda of the European Council, to discuss this issue among leaders. From my political family, I can tell you, with strengthening single market, less bureaucracy, yes to trade agreements. We need the Mercosur agreement now. And also in this Fit for 55 package of today to find a good balance. We want to have a decarbonization, but not a deindustrialization of the European Union. That is now on the table, and that's why we have to prioritize this issue. Leadership is needed again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Now, on behalf of the S&D Group, I invite Irache Garcia Perez to take the floor.
Gracias, Presidenta. El otro día, cuando seguía las noticias que me llegaban del Consejo, tengo que decirles que tenía sentimientos contradictorios. Por un lado, alivio al ver que finalmente se mantenía la unidad de los 27, porque esa es nuestra mejor arma para hacer frente a la amenaza de Putin y también para apoyar a Ucrania. Me alegré de que se adoptara el sexto paquete de sanciones a pesar de las concesiones no me sorprendieron, sinceramente, porque algunos que no conocen el significado de la palabra solidaridad intentaron sacar tajada de la crisis. Pero eso entraba dentro de lo esperado. Lo que no me esperaba es que tanto la Comisión como el Consejo se olvidaran de la dimensión interna de esta crisis, que no hayan discutido la resolución de este Parlamento sobre las consecuencias sociales y económicas que acabábamos de adoptar. Por supuesto que vamos a apoyar a Ucrania. Por supuesto que debemos fortalecer nuestra seguridad colectiva. Por supuesto que tenemos una responsabilidad para evitar una crisis alimentaria mundial. Pero no querer ver cómo esta guerra afecta a la vida cotidiana de los europeos y las europeas es una miopía peligrosa. Sí, peligrosa porque no hay nada más que salir a la calle y hablar con la gente. Vamos, no necesitamos ni siquiera hablar con la gente. Imagino que cualquiera de ustedes va al supermercado cuando podemos salir de este Parlamento y ve cómo se ha encarecido la cesta de la compra. Y seguro que son conscientes de que hay muchísimas familias en Europa que tienen verdaderas dificultades, que no cuentan con más de 50 euros semanales para poder cubrir la cesta de la compra. Y sobre eso es sobre lo que tenemos que hablar. Y por eso lamento que en el Consejo no se discutiera a fondo sobre esta cuestión. No sabemos cuánto tiempo va a durar esta guerra. Ya no es una situación de emergencia. Y todas nuestras políticas deben contemplar esta dimensión de ahora en adelante. Realmente ya tenemos el mayor flujo de refugiados y sobre todo refugiadas desde la Segunda Guerra Mundial. Es encomiable la solidaridad que muestra la ciudadanía y sobre todo los países que tienen frontera con Ucrania. Ahora a ver si los gobiernos están a la altura, porque necesitamos financiar las políticas de integración para todas estas personas. Y yo creo que ya es hora de que el Consejo se siente a hablar del pacto migratorio, señor Michel. La emergencia climática y la crisis alimentaria a la que la propia Comisión se ha referido nos parecen indicar que la presión migratoria no parece que vaya a atenuarse. Y entonces, ¿qué tenemos que hacer? Trabajar desde ahora, trabajar y estar preparados. Busquemos una solución digna, solidaria y ambiciosa que ponga frente al reto demográfico. Porque la creación